time.
Lights go on then. We're about to get racing. The lights go out. Away we go. Not a particularly good start from Thomas Holland there from the outside to the front row. Scott Leach has made a very good start. The winner of yesterday's race, heading down towards Redgate Corner then for the first time. Windscreen wipers going, so there is certainly a little bit of spray being kicked up after quite a lot of rain overnight. It's Leach leading, Hansi second. Thomas Holland is third. Oak Richardson is fourth as they make their way through Redgate Corner and out through Hollywood for the first time in this race. Then they'll drop down through Craner Curves, and it's side by side for the lead. Hansi, I think, has gone through now in the BS Motorsport prepared car for number 40, so he now leads, and Scott Leach might lose 2 places here down the Craners because Thomas Holland up the inside of him going into the old hairpin. He might just about have got that done, Josh.
Absolutely, looked to be the case. And we had our first spinner, I'm afraid, which is Matthew Short, that's had a big 360 spin there coming out of the old hairpin. Everyone's done pretty well. This is sort of an old school way of going racing, isn't it? When nobody knows what the track conditions are like on the first racing lap of the day. And Ben Hansi then, he's out for victories as the championship's gone away for him. He's a double champion from 2019 and 20. A big twitch there from Andy Bailey. Looks up the inside of Oak Richardson. Richardson, who's been one of 6 different winners this season. Andy Bailey, who joined the championship just at the last meeting at Silverstone. A very experienced racer, former Caterham champion. Andy Bailey, though, is just about to squeeze ahead of Scott Leach, who's not had a good opening lap. The winner from yesterday's dropped down to 5th now, I think, as they turn their way through the S's on the Grand Prix circuit for the first lap of today's race.
Well, 5th is where he was at the start of the final lap yesterday, and he still won it. It was a remarkable final couple of corners in particular. A dramatic race overall, really, with Jordan Johnson. We wondered whether he would be able to wrap up the championship yesterday because he ended up in a bit of a spin in the early stages as well, dropped outside the top 10 briefly and had to fight his way back up the order, but he did just enough to clinch it with that fastest lap as well. Anyway, back up to Goddard's at the end of the first lap. That's Ian Tomlinson now in the number 9 car, trying to go up the inside of Scott Leach as well. Just behind, you've got Matthew Pennefather-Neal, number 21, and also the number 70 car of Michael Pearce as well. But at the end of the first lap, it's Ben Hansi that leads. He's got his wipers going. He's got nobody in front of him, so he's turned them off now. Then it is the Holland car in second place, Oak Richardson third, Andy Bailey fourth, and there's actually a bit of a gap back to Scott Leach, who's possibly not got his car quite set up how we would like them for these damp and greasy conditions that we have this morning. Ian Tomlinson is urging him on. Behind him, as I say, Pennefather-Neal and Pearce.
Yeah, so Michael and Shay Pearce in 8th and 9th positions. We welcome them to 5 Club Racing. I think for the first time, a big spin for Thomas Holland in second place. He's sideways into the gravel, into the old hairpin, and he tries to keep his foot buried, but I think the car is stuck in the gravel, so that's the first time running at full racing speed down the Craner Curves, and Tom Holland just got it a little bit wrong on the exit of the corner, went sideways into the gravel trap, and that may be the end to Tom Holland's race, who had a great race yesterday with his best result in Mazda racing.
There was one car that came up through very late at the end of the first lap. I think that was number 29, Mary Barnard, so she may have had a misdemeanour on the first lap as well. So we're watching the car head up the hill towards Coppice. There's Leach, number 13, Tomlinson, Pearce there as well. The rest of the cars making their way through as the drivers just acclimatise to these changed conditions from yesterday. For the lead now, it is obviously a decent lead for Ben Hansi over Bailey now in second place and Oak Richardson third.
Yes, so Andy Bailey's got himself up ahead of Oak Richardson, which is a good effort. Battles a bit further back. That's Matthew Pennefather-Neal ahead of Michael Pearce. There, 21 and 70. Mark Sean Leach has had an off this time at the S's. As the leading gap coming down here, Andy Bailey to Ben Hansi. Bailey started the lap 1.6 seconds behind Hansi. Looks perhaps a little bit closer now, but it is very slippery out there. And the driver's not knowing the conditions. I think Donington Park was resurfaced for this season, which means it's not as slippery as it used to be. It's just working how much grip there is, and if you think there's more grip than perhaps there is, that's why we're seeing more offs than we might do otherwise. And with sort of traditional racing lines, I think, being taken rather than the sort of the old style wet lines that you previously got. The top 3 have pulled well clear, but it is Andy Bailey with the fastest lap, a 2:07. Which is actually only 10 seconds slower than the dry time, so they're probably a lot closer than what they used to be around here from wet to dry. But we are seeing when you do get it wrong, it means you are having quite a big moment in these conditions.
And of course, these MX5s all run on treaded tyres as well, so there's not the big difference you'd have if you're going from slicks to wets, as you would in certain categories. So these MX5s in the 5 Club Racing MX5 Cup making their way down through the old hairpin again on screen now. For those watching on the screen, it's the number 9 car of Ian Tomlinson that we're watching. He's in 4th position, the driver from Blackpool. Pennefather Neil it is, just behind him in the number 21 car. There are the top 3, and it's much, much closer for the lead now on the exit of McLean's. You've got the white and black number 40 car of Ben Hansey. Andy Bailey, number 95, is right behind him now. They head to Coppice. Richardson still there in 3rd place, and Bailey now starting to attack Ben Hansey as they go through the double apex right-hander at Coppice corner, then on to the back straight, the Starkey straight, and just going over the crest there and down into the left-hander at the Fogarty S's on this 2.5 mile Grand Prix circuit. These Mark 1 Mazda MX5s that have been racing in the UK for about 20 years after a set of regulations written by Alan Robson, who also created 5 Club about a decade ago, and he's having his last day coordinating the championship here today at Donington Park. And it's a great race we've got too, because down the inside of Ben Hansey goes Andy Bailey to take the lead at the Melbourne hairpin. Can he keep that done? Does he run wide on the exit of the corner? He doesn't, so it is still Bailey leading now from Hansey in 2nd, just starting to drop as well, I think. Oak Richardson in 3rd.
Andy Bailey's looking to become the 7th different winner of the season. He's got Ben Hansey trying to look back down the inside, but I don't think he can get there. Bailey, the driver from Bedfordshire, he owns Mint Alloys, as you can see there on the side of his car. Was the Caterham Academy champion back in 2002, which would have been very early days of that championship. He won in Caterham Graduates. He's been a class champion in Club Enduro and a BMW M3, but this is sort of going back to some of his roots in Mazda MX5 racing, low-powered cars, and he's driving this car really very well indeed. He's had some decent results at Silverstone yesterday, but in these wet conditions, seemingly going even better. Bailey, who's had a 3rd, a 5th and a couple of 6th, but he leads this time and starting to pull ahead of Ben Hansey, who seemingly doesn't quite have the pace in these conditions of the leading car of Andy Bailey in that car that has been prepared by Brian Chandler.
So up to McLean's they go. Bailey and Hansey in these two 1.6 litre MX5 Mark 1s. The regulations are very tightly written. There's not much in the way of modifications, as Bailey has a big moment coming out of McLean's there. So they're very standard. It is a very affordable way indeed to go motor racing. Quite a few different teams as well will run cars in the championship, so it's possible to do this on an arrive and drive basis. Maybe if you want to try and get into motorsport for the first time. Scott Leach in the background there, it looked like he was going to try and start to attract, I think Adrian Johnson that was, for 9th position as he recovers. He was on pole position, of course. He had that moment at the Fogarty S's a couple of laps ago and dropped, I think, outside the top 10, but he's now trying to climb back up the order. Here's, though, is Tomlinson with Matthew Pennefather Neil just behind him. They head through the Fogarty S's, the left and right flick, and then it's down the hill towards the Melbourne hairpin on this Grand Prix loop. They've pulled... Oh, and someone else has had a moment there, and who was that?
Martina Ward? Possibly, I'm not sure.
Possibly it was. But we're back with this battle, and that is number 14, Lloyd Huggins here, who's made up a place on this lap already, and is now attacking Michael Pearce for 6th place.
Yeah, so Lloyd Huggins has got past Shay Pearce, now trying to go past Michael Pearce. Huggins, he started 11th in this race. He's climbed up into P7 at this stage then for the aircraft technician from Hemel Hempstead. The 27-year-old who only started racing a few seasons ago, going pretty well here. Meanwhile, the top 3 have pulled a long way clear of this group, which is being led by Ian Tomlinson, who was the runner-up in the championship in 2019. Then you've got Matthew Pennefather Neil, who had a podium at Mallory Park earlier in the season. Those two taking a much more conventional line through Redgate. Those behind were rather wider out over the concrete. And the best of those is Michael Pearce, who's making his 5 Club debut this weekend. And going pretty well. He's up there in 6th position. He finished 9th yesterday, but coming under pressure now from Lloyd Huggins, who's done many more races in this category. I think he's pretty much only raced in 5 Club racing. There's a top 3, that bit further ahead, but Andy Bailey, after that big slide he had at McLean's on the previous lap, hasn't pulled any further clear from Ben Hansey, realising the curbs are pretty treacherous in these conditions.
Yeah, and I think Oak Richardson might just be narrowing the gap to the leaders as well now, so we'll see how things Changed.
Ooh.
Oh, and a moment there. That is the number 99 car that has gone off. That's Martin Vernon, the Prestonian. He is back onto the circuit now, though, after his off. 5 minutes now of the race left to go. It's a 15-minute race. All of the races today are on over a time duration rather than a set number of laps. So 15 minutes for this one. And on screen now, we're watching the battle for fourth position between Ian Tomlinson, Matthew Pennefather-Neal, Michael Pearce, Lloyd Huggins, and just a little bit further back now, Shay Pearce. And these 5 cars are around about 9 seconds behind the leader, Andy Bailey, as we work lap 5 of the race.
Big look up the inside from Michael Pearce to try and get 5th position away from Matthew Pennefather-Neal. They're wheel to wheel. This could give Lloyd Huggins a chance potentially at the next corner. That tighter line from Pearce, not giving the traction off of the hairpin as well as the car on the outside, as Andrew Robinson has gone for a spin a bit further around the circuit, the driver from North Yorkshire.
As they're up the inside looked the number 70 car of Michael Pearce to try and make a move on Matthew Pennefather-Neal, as yet unable to find a way through. They go over the line now. In the background you can see Scott Leach is there in 9th place, but I don't think he's really gaining on the cars ahead of him, certainly fast enough to make any impression on this group of cars. Only 3 minutes 50 to go, so we possibly now just about, we might get 3 more laps out of this to make it an 8-lap race, but it will be touching over. It's 2 more laps or 3 more laps, I think, Josh, as we watch the cars head down through the Craner curves. And now Huggins is having a look up the inside into the old hairpin. Of course, the circuit very greasy. Is there enough grip to get that move done? Looks like there is. So Lloyd Huggins now breaks into the top 6, but then has a big tank slapper. I think probably Pearce behind him had to just get off the gas a little bit just to avoid going into the back of him. And it looked like that might have opened the door for Shay Pearce to go through as well, as we're now back with the leaders who remain, Josh, quite close together.
Yeah, that's right. So it's Ben Hansey just sitting there behind Andy Bailey, waiting for the final lap to attack. And is that final lap going to be on the next lap or not? That's that question we were pondering, and it is quite possible, isn't it, that the next lap is going to be the final lap, I think. So we'll see as they come out of the Grand Prix loop in about 40 seconds or so, if that's the case. But it is Andy Bailey still ahead of Ben Hansey. Hansey, who's had those victories this season, but not so much lately. Hasn't won a race since Anglesey, I don't think, actually, Ben Hansey. That was back in May, so it's quite some time ago. That he's going to give it a shot, I suspect, as they turn their way down out of the hairpin. So as it was yesterday in some of the races, very tight, whether it be 1 or 2 more laps. We wait to see if the last lap board is shown to the leaders, which it doesn't look like it is, though they might well squeeze 2 more laps in as they cross the line with about a lap time to go, Ian. We'll see what happens when they come to the end of the lap. Yeah,
it was very touch and go, wasn't it, whether there was going to be a last lap board there or not, as we have about 2 or 3 car lengths between Andy Bailey and Ben Hansey as we go on to this final lap of the race. Then Ben looking set for 2nd place in the championship then this season. He's had the 3 wins so far this year, looking to add to that tally, but he's going to have to find a way past Andy Bailey, who, as Josh said, would be a 7th different winner of the season. Scott Leach became the 6th yesterday, and I suppose that shows that it is a very competitive championship. We had Ben Short do a handful of races in the mid-season. I think he won all of them, but he's not done a full campaign this year. The man who's been champion at least a couple of times in 5 Club. He does run cars in the championship as well. Oh, and now, well spotted, Josh, Ben Hansey has got a 5-second penalty for exceeding track limits. So, well, that means he's probably not going to win this race unless something very strange happens now. And although Andy Bailey is desperately trying to throw it away for the on-the-road win.
Yeah, it's very much sliding around. So despite this track giving off a lot more grip than perhaps it may have done in the past in these conditions, with all the money that Motorsport Vision spent on it over the winter to resurface the track in its entirety, it is still the cars do still slide around a lot. I say they're probably carrying a lot more speed than they normally would do in the wet as they turn their way down. The racing line is starting to dry out a little bit, which means it's potentially getting greasier as they turn their way out of the Melbourne Loop down towards Goddard, and we're expecting, I think, to see the checkered flag this time.
Yeah, let's wait and see if we do then. So it's Bailey with his Dayglow wheels heading into Goddard's for the final time. The number 95 car, he's got Hansi only a couple of car lengths behind him, but he does have that 5-second penalty now. Are we going to get a check flag this time? Yes, we are. So it is Andy Bailey then that becomes the 7th different winner in the 5 Club Racing MX5 Cup. Second across the line is Ben Hansi, although I think that 5-second penalty will drop him back down to 3rd position. And Oak Richardson will be promoted. Then a gap back to, in the end, Ian Tomlinson taking 4th place, Matthew Pennefather-Neal 5th, Lloyd Huggins 6th, then Shea Pearce and Michael Pearce separated by 0.6 of a second in 7th and 8th. Scott Leach did break away from the pack behind to secure a solid 9th position, and then it was Adrian Johnson that's rounded out the top 10 at the end of the first of 2 races today for the 5 Club Racing MX5 Cup, Josh.
Yeah, and a partially reversed grid to come this afternoon, so it's possible that one of those cars in that big group that we enjoyed, especially in the middle of the race, is where a pole sitter may come. Up across the line there, Matthew Short, who spun on the first lap. He recovered to 16th, so that was a pretty good effort there from Matthew Short, who was lapping quickly, finished just behind Martina Ward in the end, who had a decent race as well. The rest of the field just flowing through, and I think apart from Tom Holland, who ended up in the gravel there on the second lap, everybody's managed to negotiate this 7-lap race without too many issues.
Well, and that's often the case, isn't it, in 5 Club? I think everyone who started yesterday's race finished, and that's not unusual that happens because these cars are really very reliable as well, usually.
And there's very good driving standards in this championship too.
Absolutely, very well policed and well observed. So, yeah, it's good to see a record where nearly all of the cars have finished the race. Hopefully Thomas Holland will back out for the final race this afternoon, although I think he'll have to go from the back of the grid.
Perhaps something that Marcus Simmons needs to do for Sport is work out the percentage of finishers in all championships in the UK, and I suspect this will be high up on that list.
It will be. Let's have a look at the results, though, of the first race of the day, the Switch MX5 Cup by 5 Club. So Andy Bailey, it was that took the win, 7 laps completed in the race. Second on your screen there is number 40, Ben Hansen, but when that 5-second penalty gets added to his time, he will drop to 3rd position behind number 17, Oak Richardson. 4th place will go to number 9, Ian Tomlinson. 5th to number 21, Matthew Pennefather-Neal. In 6th place, number 14, Lloyd Huggins. Then it's Shea Pearce at number 16 in 7th. 8th to number 17, Michael Pearce. 9th to number 13, Scott Leach. And 10th to number 22, Adrian Johnson. Andy Bailey got the fastest lap as well, by the way, 2:07.54. Outside the top 10, it was Nico Favo, David Brown, Samuel Gormer, and Scott Lawrence down to 14th. Then Martina Ward 15th, ahead of Matthew Short on his comeback. Martin Vernon, James McCutcheon, John Goldsmith and Neil Burrows rounding out the top 20, with Robinson, Russell, Barnard and Lawrence completing the finishes, and Thomas Holland ending his race in the gravel trap at the old hairpin. So another race to come for the MX5s later on today. That is due off at around about 2 o'clock this afternoon, so that's one not to miss as well. And a reminder, lots more racing still to come here at Donington Park during the course of the day, with the K-Tech Racing Clio Sport Championship the next race scheduled. But we are ready now to head down to the pit lane for the first time today, and we're going to hear from Andy McEwen with our successful drivers in 5 Club.
Yeah, thanks very much, Ian. Welcome down to a slightly chilly pit lane, although actually that wind not quite as cold as some of us feared it would be today. Great opening race to the day, though, from the 5 Club MX5s, and we can, I think, now dive in and have a chat with our top 3, starting with our race winner, Andy Bailey. Andy, race-long pressure, really, there. Once you hit the front, Ben never did leave you alone.
No, absolutely. I could see it in the mirror, sort of like it was a constant gap. A couple of corners he was catching up, but then I could see he was understeering on other corners, so just try and not watch on the mirrors and just keep driving forward, and yeah, happy days.
And keep within those track limits, which can always be tricky in these conditions. Extra tricky. Oh, here's your winner's garland. Actually, we'll let you collect that, and the winner's cap, of course, most importantly. But yeah, in those conditions, keeping it on the island is so tricky. With no green flag lap, it was a real voyage into the unknown at the start.
It was, yeah. I mean, the start wasn't so bad, but as the race went on, it was kind of get a bit greasier. So there's a couple of corners, the car was understeering, and I did, so I think, triggered the camera a couple of times. I was watching the start-finish straight for the old black and white flag, but it didn't come my way. So hopefully, yeah, I've behaved with track limits. I think it's twice. I think I did him. So yeah, it wasn't too bad, but yeah, it was getting a bit slippy towards the end.
Thoughts now for the third and final race later on? Are you hoping it dries up, or are you quite happy for another damp one?
Wet. Bring on the wet.
If you see him doing a rain dance, you know why. Congratulations, Andy Bailey, on the race victory. Now, second place finisher, Oak Richardson. Oak, welcome to the podium. We were kind of expecting you to be here yesterday, but the last lap didn't quite go to plan, did it?
No, it definitely didn't. No.
Today, thankfully, things stayed a little bit cleaner for you there. You've ended up being bumped up into second place, but satisfied with the way that one panned out?
Oh yeah, I mean it's a pretty boring race to be honest. Just going around and not trying to spin. They were a little bit quicker in front of me. I couldn't catch them. There's no one behind that could catch me, so just sort of went round and round and round really. Yeah, it's fine.
Are you a driver who enjoys these kind of in-betweeny, damp, greasy conditions? Because some drivers do have a bit of a knack for it.
Yeah, I do normally. I mean, after yesterday's race, the front was a little bit skew-whiff, so it didn't feel quite as good as it did yesterday. So hence was a little bit slower today, but it's fine. Went round, finished.
You've got a third race later on to try and go a little bit better. Congratulations on the podium there. That's Oak Richardson then coming home in second place. And it's another third place finish, I'm afraid, for Ben Hansey. You must have thought you were second place there, but triggered those track limit sensors once too often, apparently.
Yeah, I don't believe it was the sensors. I'm pretty sure it was the chicane. It was the only place that it was worth doing in those conditions. I know Andy had been here earlier in the week doing a lot of wet testing. So when he got up behind me, it was like, well, he's a guest, so he's not scoring any points. So let's follow him and see what he learned in the week. And I don't know if there was a slap board, but I didn't see it. And then I saw the 5-second penalty. So it's like, oh well, it's been a giggle.
It has, and I suppose in a way you can really just enjoy yourself now today. We do believe the championship's obviously gone Jordan's way, and obviously you're disappointed that you weren't able to take the fight to him into the final day, but now you can have two races around a fantastic track that always produces good MX5 racing.
Yeah, racing with Jordan has been brilliant all year. He deserves the championship this year. He's worked really hard for it. He celebrated last night, so he didn't come out today. I believe he's going to be out this afternoon. Would be good to have a proper elbows out ding dong with nothing but good hard racing to fight for, so be good.
Absolutely. Congratulations then to our podium finishers. Now, as was mentioned during that race, bit of a special celebration going on this weekend for the 5 Club MX5s, because their championship coordinator, Alan Robson, is stepping away from the championship at the end of the season. And actually, Alan, I don't know whether you know this is happening, but can we have a quick chat with you? We can't not talk to you. It's a very special weekend for you. A bittersweet one, I'm sure, for you and the rest of the championship.
It's not the end of an era, it's the end of a chapter. And it's been a 20-year chapter with MX5s, done my time. I've got a couple of itches I want to scratch personally, in racing, and I think it'll be carried on. Strangely enough, Ben Hansey's going to take it on.
Oh, really?
And I think he's a perfect person to lift this to a new level.
For those who don't know then, watching at home, your involvement with MX5 racing stretches back quite a long way. You mentioned there a couple of decades worth. You actually are responsible, I believe, for writing the regulations for MX5 racing that we know and love today.
Yeah, there was no MX5s racing in the UK 20 years ago when we first wrote the regulations, and it's 20 years ago last month when we first started building the first cars. So 20 years is enough. You get less for murder.
You do indeed. I'm sure there are some really special memories, though, particularly over the last 10 years or so working with the 750 Motor Club. I'm sure you made some friends for life here as well.
I think it's been a great period of life. We've met a lot of like-minded people. I hope to call quite a few of these people my friends now, and I hope they do think of me the same way.
I'm absolutely sure they do. And they're in fact going to prove that to you now, because this you don't know about. We've got a very special gift for you today. This is a special picture that's been commissioned for you. Giles Groombridge here from the club on hand to present it to you. I don't know if we can see the picture there, but that is a picture commemorating Alan's 10 years of service to the 750 Motor Club, to the 5 Club MX5s. On the image we have the cars of all of the champions from the 5 Club MX5 Championship during the years that Alan has been in charge, and a very special moment. There we go. Everyone, a big round of applause, please, for Alan Robson. Amazing stuff. Giles, can I have a quick chat with you as well? We'll drag you over here to get your thoughts on that. Alan was saying some very nice things about you and the club, and I'm sure you'd like to do exactly the same.
Absolutely, Alan's done an absolutely fantastic job over the years with the 5 Club Championship. Taking it from nothing more than an idea back in 2015 to one of the biggest championships that we've run, and the 5 Club paddock has always been one of the most fun, the most harmonious, and best places to be, which Alan deserves a lot of the credit for.
Indeed so. Thank you very much, Giles. Well, there you go. Big thank you from everyone at the 750 Motor Club to Alan for all of his hard work. He's going to go away and celebrate as the rest of the day goes on. We, though, have more racing action to enjoy with the K-Tech Racing Clio Championship about to head out onto the circuit. I think the celebrations down here in the pit lane, though, might last a few minutes longer.